I was 12 years old when I first got trafficked.
Leave me in the car and men would use me there over and over and over. And then when he opened the door, he said, "Gee, you look like hell." And he'd give me my money for drugs and he'd drop me off at home. He never protected me. For years, he sold me.
It's not a place to work, it's not a place to stay. It is a darkness.
Sex trafficking falls under human trafficking. So under human trafficking there's both labor trafficking and sex trafficking. So sex trafficking is when an individual is forced to go into commercial sex. So that could mean survival sex because they're trying to survive on the street, or they're being forced to have sex with individuals.
Reports of human trafficking in Ohio are on the rise.
My name is Shandra. I came from Indonesia. I live in New York City since 2001.
A startling new report is shedding light on sex trafficking right here in our own backyard.
I tried to seek employment in newspaper and I got offered to work in United States. All the paperwork was legal from one of the hotel in Chicago. The embassy checked and I got my visa. I flew to New York City. Right after arrive in JFK, someone that I never met picked us with my picture. Are you Shandra?
Underage girls are caught up in the dark and frightening world of sex trafficking, and it's an industry that's booming in the West, firmly implanted here.
So it depends on the age. So primarily we see, we do see a lot of younger girls between the ages of 16 and 19, mainly runaways and that have been trafficked. So they're trying to survive on the streets, and then a trafficker targets them, and then will convince them that the only way they can survive is by being a prostitute, and then they'll take care of them, and then they're forced into that. The other group we see is a little bit older, usually anywhere from 18 to 24, and they're addicted to drugs. And again, the trafficker gets them addicted to drugs, and then forces them to be prostitutes.
They said, "You should change your name." What happened with my name? My name is so beautiful, I thought. So they give me name Candy.
I worked as a resource and service specialist at a domestic violence shelter, sex trafficking hotline, but I had one woman whose dad trafficked her from I want to say 3 years old into adulthood, and she was trying to escape him and move across country. And we actually had one resident whose grandparents sex trafficked her and sold her to different friends. Yes, because now it's a bigger platform. Now you could find sex trafficking in disguise. So it will come in the forms of, there's a thing called Backpage that was a big internet thing, and then you could go on Craigslist, and it just it says things like blonde girl looking for date, things like that.
Different types of social media platforms. For example, there's a place called Skip the Games. That's one site, or CityX, or Bedpage. So these girls will be advertised on there by the trafficker, and then they're advertising. A person will call or text that advertisement, and then the trafficker will send the girl to the location of the person that's calling.
So I took a trip, and after 3 days of a 1-week holiday, he told me actually I wasn't there to be there for a holiday, and that I was to go and work for him, and that I'd go and work on the streets as a prostitute. I had to make a certain amount of money.
So, you know, right? You have to pay $30,000 to get your freedom from this work. I was in fear because I saw condom everywhere. it's not place to work, it's not place to stay. It is a darkness.
So outreach is one of the things that we do, is educating the public, training law enforcement, and then we're training all professionals. So anyone that may come in contact with a victim that may be trafficked. So for example, a lot of trafficking victims will go to a medical facility like a doctor. So our research has shown that 83% of the trafficking victims are actually seen by medical personnel, and medical personnel is not seeing that. So one of my initiatives is to train all medical personnel on the red flags and what to look for to try to identify victims of human trafficking.
This, in fact, is a domestic issue. It's not something that's happening across an ocean. It's happening in our own backyard.
That night was the worst part of my life. At that night, we planned to escape.
It depends on each one. So victims of sex trafficking, most of the conditions are very substandard. So they're living in maybe a motel, and they may sleep on the floor. And some of the girls that we've come in contact with, we found girls that are sleeping in a room that's maybe 6 by 8 on the floor, sleeping on a toddler mattress with just a sheet. There's roaches all over them, crawling on their clothes, crawling on the mattresses. We found that they're eating out of a small burner. They're bathing in the sink right in that area, and that's all that they have available to them. So they're very.
Every night, my trafficker slept in front of the door. The window all locked.
Does she have poor hygiene? Does she? Can she tell you where she lives? Is she unsure of her surroundings? Does she have a script and exactly what she is supposed to say to law enforcement? Those kind of things.
Prayed to God and I asked His help. I opened the water, the tap water, to make a noises. I stepped on the sink and went to the window and jumped. Two of us escaped.
Well, I mean, some of them say, well, she wanted to do it, she's part of it, I'm giving her a way of surviving, and that's their justification. I mean, I've had traffickers do that. I've also had traffickers traffic their own children, and they've told me that that's their prerogative because it's their. Well, being aware of your surroundings is important, and be careful who you talk to. Online especially. I mean, we're very trusting when people we meet online, especially in social media. We think the person we're talking to or communicating with on social media is that person, and many times it's someone that has an interest to groom you and maybe exploit you. That's one thing. And then, of course, being aware of your surroundings. What I've learned, and I've been a police officer for a long time, over 31 years, a lot of the offenders that I've talked to, the sex offenders I've talked to, traffickers, they look for women that come across to have like a very low self-esteem, or they look like they're not really paying attention to their surroundings. So I always tell my daughters, and I tell everyone this, I said, always walk around that you're in charge, and that you don't project that you're always aware of your surroundings, and you're not making yourself an easy target. And then be aware of the scams that are out there.
And he took everything away from me. He took a lot of time, but he's taken everything since as well. And he didn't just make me go and work, he took over everything. He took over the way that I thought, the way that I dressed, the way that I spoke to people. I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't.
In trauma for a long time. Some people easily to forget, but some people it's not easy. They still need help, consistent help and ongoing help. They offer to survivor to be safe, happy, and get her freedom.